I would like to invite Mr. Marcos Pereira, Minister of Industry, Foreign Trade and Services. Good morning. I would like to greet President José Sarney, as well as Madam Susan Siegel, and also thank you for the invitation to participate in this edition of Latin American cities here in Brasilia, and I would also like to greet all the members of the Council of the Americas. Aloysio Nunes, I would like to thank you for your brilliant intervention. Also, Roberto Jaguaribe, President of Apex Brazil, thank you for your very timely words. I would also like to congratulate the organizers of the event for the initiative of broadcasting it online, which is a very important mechanism nowadays that will provide greater access to the population to all the issues that we will discuss along the day. Our message, ladies and gentlemen, is in line with what President Michel Temer brought to us, as well as Minister Aloysio Nunes' words. Brazil is going through a very important moment in its history, a moment of reconstruction, reformulation of its pillars. We are, under the leadership of President Michel Temer, have been conducting harsh but necessary reforms, tough but necessary reforms. The government, as you will find along the day in the words of my colleagues, Minister Diogo, Minister Meirelles, you will see that the government is concerned and focused on improving the business environment. Therefore, we are working to design policies that will encourage domestic investments as well as attract foreign capital. We are working towards a less interventionist state, seeking to encourage a transparent and safe environment with renewed trust. We can see this in almost 10 years of the current administration. And we understand that these elements, transparency, security, trust, are crucial to improve the country's insertion in the global economy. And we are committed towards this, as Minister Aloysio said. We are committed towards the opening of international trade, reduction of red tape. I will speak more about this issue shortly, and also with the increase of productivity and innovation, obviously, with the attraction of investments. We see the U.S. as an essential partner in the process of reconstruction. I would like to greet the ambassador of the U.S. We had a very productive meeting 2 weeks ago at the Ministry of Industry, Foreign Trade and Services. And I would like to say that our countries maintain solid trade relations, both in terms of intensity and in terms of quality of trade flows. And I should mention some figures here to illustrate what we are focused on. As mentioned by Minister Aloysio, almost $47 billion have been, the balance of trade was the balance of trade last year, and $23 billion between imports and exports, a record since 1999 in the whole historical series made by the Brazilian government. So these figures reveal that the balance of trade between Brazil and the US, but this makes the US a major partner of Brazil, behind only second to China. The composition of this trade chain also makes the US a priority trade partner. Our trade flow is composed mostly of high added value products. So a major portion of imports and exports consist of industrialized products. In terms of investments, we know that the presence of U.S. companies in Brazil has always been great. And the latest available data indicate that the U.S. ranks first in the stock of ED in Brazil, and also in terms of capital participation. So almost 20% of the stock of foreign investments received by Brazil is of U.S. origin, according to the Brazilian Central Bank. These figures are relevant, but there is still a lot of room to explore by American investors, and so we are preparing our country to welcome them so that we can move forward. At the Ministry of Industry, Foreign Trade and Services, we have been working actively together with the whole of the Brazilian government to improve the business environment and reduce the so-called Brazil cost. Regarding this, I would like to bring information to you that last year, together with the private sector, we implemented and are still implementing a package of 47 measures to reduce red tape and simplify administrative procedures in the Ministry of Industry, Foreign Trade and Services and related bodies. So these measures are aimed at improving public procedures, administrative procedures, and the 47 measures that were announced last year were actually the subject of an important article by Valor Econômico, and also in the international media also focused on these measures. And so President Temer determined to all its ministers that we should reduce red tape as much as possible. And so as a result of a public audience we conducted, we received more than 200 suggestions, 47 of which focused on the Ministry of Industry, Foreign Trade and Services, and these measures are currently being implemented. Others refer to other ministries, and so we have forwarded them to the respective ministers, as well as to the Minister of the Presidency of the Republic. And so just to give you an idea, in the Institute of Metrology and Standardization, in METRO, for instance, we will review all the internal procedures and enhance the process analysis systems. The time needed for certification of organizations and laboratories is currently 24 months. At the end of this review, we hope to reduce this to 12 months. At the Institute of Industrial Property, we will also standardize procedures for granting of patents, and at SUFRAMA, which manages the free trade zone of Manaus, we will reduce the deadline for analysis of research and development projects under the IT law from 6 to 3 years, so that within the industrial hub of Manaus, the process for analysis of licenses will be reduced from 6 hours to 2 hours. All this will be implemented by the end of this year. Some measures, those that involve only adjustment of existing rules and that depend only on the Ministry of Industry, are and will be implemented immediately, some in the next 2 months or next 3 months, 18 months at most. The ones that will take longer will require are ones that require a little more time because they involve other bodies of the federal government. So we created a monitoring center to keep track of the implementation of this red tape reduction package, and we hope to implement all of them by the end of this year. In the area of trade facilitation, which is one of the most important ones initiated by the Temer administration, the most important, in my view, is the single portal for foreign trade, an initiative by the Ministry of Industry and the Ministry of Finance in coordination with 20 other bodies of the federal government. The portal is a crucial mechanism for reduction of red tape and modernization of all the processes related to foreign trade. By the way, we will launch the first phase of the portal focusing on export operations tomorrow. No, actually, well, I arrived in Brasilia on Sunday. We've been working on this since Saturday on the beef issue. I have some information for you on that. And we will launch on Thursday, together with President Temer at the Planalto Palace. We will launch the air module of the export model, as well as, and also we will launch the land and sea models by the end of the month, and by the end of the year we hope to have this single window for exports fully implemented.
This is in line with one of the measures set forth by the TradeGo conference promoted by the WTO in February of this year, and it showcases Brazil's commitment to the rules in the multilateral trade environment. Now, when it comes to export measures, just a few days ago we started working on reviewing our export culture through PNCE, the National Plan for an Export Culture, which focuses on finding companies with potential that have not imported or that used to imported, which used to export and no longer do, and those that export only sporadically, and instill an exportation culture among them. We've been working on this program, and today we've got over 2,300 companies enrolled in the program, and we also enjoy the partnership of many entities in the government. We're also going to be improving the system for import zones. This will greatly expand business opportunities in the country, and will also foster and drive our exports forward, and thus increase jobs and also revenue, which is our main challenge. Also ongoing and rather successful is the Brasil Mais Produtivo, Brazil More Productive program, a program by the Ministry of Development and Foreign Trade aiming to improve the country's competitiveness with the support of about 3,000 small and medium-sized companies. Just to give you an idea of the size of these companies, those companies are companies with between 11 and 200 employees. The average increase in productivity for the companies that have undergone consultancy in this program is 50%. That's how much it increases, and this shows how successful the program has been. In fact, we are now expanding the four main areas of action, which is footwear, clothes, and a few other production items. We're expanding those to include connectivity and digital platforms, as well as energy efficiency. So by doing this, we want to move from 3,000 to 15,000 companies included in the program. In order to tackle the challenges presented by the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution, we've put together a task force composed of private and public institutions to design a policy for advanced manufacturing in Brazil. We want to introduce that this year. We're looking at industrial policies for the future. We don't want something for today only, focused on incentives today. We want something that will place Brazil in a more competitive position in the future to ensure that Brazil will indeed join what we call Industry 4.0. We're calling this Rota 2013, the route to 2013. That's our time frame. Also, in terms of promoting innovation, at INPI, the National Institute of Intellectual Property, we've been working to reduce the backlog. Yes, last year, for the first time, the number of patents granted was greater than the number of patents requested. We know that this is not enough. We know that the challenge remains huge, but it is nonetheless progress in the right direction, because this is one of our main challenges. As part of our work with INPI, there's a pilot project called PPH under INPI and the US PTO. We've been working together with the Patent Office in the US, and this is the first such project ever introduced in Brazil. It's now in its second year and has been generating very important information to help put in place future initiatives in both countries. In June of this year, following the commercial or the trade dialogues we've scheduled before that, in June, we're also expecting to hold the CEO Forum. It's a Brazil-US forum with the participation of the CEOs from the 12 largest companies in both countries, and also co-chaired by government representatives and representatives from the private initiative of both countries. The CEO Forum seeks to develop and present recommendations to governments and to the private sector so as to ultimately improve economic and trade ties to the benefit of both countries. Now, I don't want to be redundant. I don't want to but in our foreign trade agenda in Brazil, we've been improving and advancing our partnerships with the United States, as well as in our cooperation with such partners as Mexico, EU, India, and other countries. Just today is the first day of the meeting between Mercosur and the EU. We have negotiators from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from the Ministry of Development, from the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Development, many ministries in Brazil's executive branch, alongside its Mercosur partners, to move this negotiation between the two blocs forward. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Aloysio, just said, there's renewed appetite and renewed interest by the European Union to make progress in our negotiations between the free trade agreement between the two blocs. In June of last year, in Shanghai, in the G20 Foreign Trade Ministers meeting, we also had a side meeting with Cecilia Malmström from the EU. And in January of this year in Davos, we conducted a second bilateral meeting. And their willingness now in Davos was quite different from their disposition last year in Shanghai. So, together with Argentina, which was also in attendance in a bilateral meeting in Davos with Cecilia Malmström, and we want by the end of this year to be able to announce the conclusion of negotiations, at least at the political level, so that next year we may continue to advance from a more technical perspective. So that's what Mercosur wishes to do going forward, and also what the EU wants to accomplish, especially under the leadership of Brazil and Argentina. In our initial talks between our own technical officials and those in Europe, the topic of animal protein or Brazilian beef will not be discussed. It will not be a part of this round of negotiations, as I was just told this morning by the person in charge of the Ministry of Development and Foreign Trade Delegation in Buenos Aires. I would also like to share with you figures that I received yesterday from the Foreign Trade Secretariat at the Ministry of Industry. Out of the 21 slaughterhouses under close scrutiny by the Ministry of Agriculture, the exports of those 21 meatpacker industries in 2016 did not exceed $120 million out of a total of almost $14 billion of animal meat exports. So that accounts for less than 1% of Brazilian exports. This is to show that this is indeed an isolated issue, something that's being dealt with by the Brazilian government very deftly and very transparently. As President Temer has said, Korea has backtracked on its decision to no longer permit Brazilian beef exports. Now, to conclude, we're also working to advance in our cooperation and investment facilitation agreement within Mercosur for public procurement. We're working on this alongside people from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other ministries. We've also concluded this agreement recently, which is an innovative approach devised by Brazil and very well accepted by other countries. So we've been able to sign this agreement with Mozambique, Angola, Mexico, Malawi, Colombia, Chile, Peru, India, and Jordan. And we are in advanced negotiations with Morocco and within Mercosur itself, as we mentioned earlier. We're very thankful and grateful to Brazil's National Congress for expediting these agreements. From a multilateral perspective, we've also been active participants in this discussion and other issues such as the agreement on trade facilitation and investment facilitation at the level of the WTO. To conclude, let me say that through all these efforts, through all these initiatives, we are trying to penetrate new markets, open new markets, attract new investment, and promote economic growth by integrating markets in Brazil. We're now beginning a new development cycle focusing on further integrating Brazil into the global value chains. Once again, I reiterate, we're trying to improve the competitiveness of our companies while at the same time in making the country attractive and safe to foreign investment. Our work agenda is quite intense. The challenges are significant, but I will tell you that it will become easier and easier for Brazilian companies to prosper and for other companies to invest in Brazil. I'd like to thank SUSES for this invitation, as well as the Council of the Americas for affording me this opportunity to discuss with you what we've been doing for the Brazilian government over at my ministry, the Ministry of Development, Foreign Trade and Services, and on behalf of the Brazilian population as a whole. We are in a hurry, and we're doing the best we can in order to advance as fast as possible. I'd like to conclude by once again thanking you and telling you, Mr. Minister Aloysio, I like to let my body talk. We are on the edge of the abyss. Now, with this new administration, Brazil is now moving away from that abyss. Thank you.